All right, let's start, guys. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today um, at this gaming webinar that we are hosting. Remember that all the content is going to be recorded and put it on YouTube after, and you will receive it via email. I'm Leandro Santos, gaming leader at WinClub, and today we will talk, debate, and share best practices, experiences, and examples for gaming user retention. Today, I have the pleasure to be moderating with my partner and colleague, Rachel Alter from Appreciate, Head of Business Development.
Thank you, Leo. Yeah, so it looks like an exciting gathering today because we have really two exceptional individuals in the mobile gaming industry who have allowed us very nicely to pick their brains. So I'm going to introduce them. So we have Andres Konstantinidis from Tiny Bytes, and he has over 19 years experience in the entertainment and digital industry. And he's worked for huge companies such as Warner Bros. And HBO and Disney and Electronic Arts and Blue Mobile. And he is now the CEO and co-founder of Tiny Bytes. And in addition, we also have Pau Quevedo, and he is the lead programmatic trading from Good Game Studios. And he is the UA manager, and he's got years of experience in the gaming industry. And currently, he leads out the programmatic and ad monetization efforts at Good Game Studios. And his efforts at the moment are focused on bringing the programmatic activities in-house in Good Game Studios. So welcome. So I think it would be great maybe to hear a little bit in your own words, a little bit about the companies that you're at. So Pau, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Rachel.
I guess.
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, we can go.
Yeah. I'm leading the team of programmatic training at Good Game Studios. We are part of, we are based in Hamburg, and also in Germany, and we release casual and mid-core titles. The company has been around for more than 10 years. We're quite famous in Europe, I would say. And we're part of the Stillfront Group. It's a group of around 14 companies based in Sweden. And we collaborate at different levels with all the different companies. And some companies from the group you might know are Kicksai or Bubble Games from Jordan or Stormade and from the US. And yeah, we have some pretty diversified portfolio, but it's mostly focused on mid-core and strategy games.
Cool. Amazing. Andres, if you want to.
Sure. Thanks very much, Rachel and Leo. At Tiny Bytes, we develop action games with the best possible social features for core mobile players around the world. And our goal is to have players competing, teaming up, communicating, and building communities around our games. And our latest game is Massive Warfare, and it's an online PvP multi-vehicle war shooter on mobile, and it achieved over 12 million downloads and reached top 30 grossing action games on Google Play.
Cool. Amazing. Rachel.
Okay, so I will, yeah. So Appreciate is a programmatic app marketing platform that enables marketers to take control of their app marketing. So in addition to extremely granular targeting, the buyers that come on board, they have unconditional transparency at exchange level, at app levels, and at auction levels. So in all actuality, pretty much you could say that Appreciate is the anti-black box DSP.
Amazing. And last but not least, WinClub. At WinClub, we help mobile game advertisers to build and run successful user acquisition, retention, and reactivation strategies across multiple channels, programmatic, search, and social, and SDK partners. With our proprietary technology, we centralize and analyze all the information coming from the different media sources. And with your data science and in-house artists, we work as an extension of your team for both small studios or startups that need a lot of manpower, but also for big companies to help them for a specific market, channel, or a specific game. So being that said, I think we are ready to start. Just before we start, guys, we all want to know more about you and your gaming profile. So let's play like a quick game here. for you, Andres and Pau. We got some A/B questions for you. Like you need to answer the first thing that came out to your mind. Sounds good, Andres?
Let's go for it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's go for
Okay.
it.
Andres, first, villains or superheroes?
Superheroes.
Pau?
Okay. Pau,
Uh,
Marvel. Yeah. Oh, Pau, you say, you answer. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I love comics. I'm a superhero guy. I like those.
Okay, both superheroes. You can go, Rich.
Yeah. So I would have to also say superheroes. Has me. Yeah.
Okay.
And what about you?
Okay, I prefer superheroes as well. Yeah, so you all superheroes, you love comics. Marvel or DC Comics?
It's funny that you asked this because last night I was watching a DC movie and I was actually asking it myself. Can you actually believe this? I'm not kidding. And I would always tell you, I know, actually, I was thinking about this last night. I'm a huge Marvel fan. I read comics from the X-Men, since I was a kid. But I gotta give credit to the classics like Batman and Superman to DC.
Okay,
So although I watch Marvel and read it all the time, I'm gonna go for DC this time. I'm a betrayer.
okay. Andres?
It's DC for me on the comic side, and Marvel definitely on the movie side.
Okay, amazing.
I have to say Marvel for myself. I don't know. Maybe because I have all of the movies stuck in my head. So Marvel for me.
Okay, just two extra more. Andres, PlayStation or Xbox console?
It's always PlayStation with friends, but Xbox when I'm by myself, or at least when I had time to spend more time with the console. Yes, Xbox.
Amazing. Pau?
I'm a Nintendo freak, so I don't know that question. I like it that much.
Ah.
No,
Super mobile.
I also have the PlayStation 4. I like Japanese games, so I'll go for
Okay.
PlayStation all the way.
Awesome. Okay, last one. Type of game. Andres, shooting game or arcade games for mobile?
It's a tough one. I'd go for shooting because that's what we're kind of specializing in lately. But we have also a tradition with arcade, so I have my heart on both. But I would say shooting because we're now going to release a new game that's a shooter game as well. So let's go for that one.
Awesome. Okay, and Pau?
Yeah, I'll go for a shooter. I didn't include it, but I used to play semi-professional shooter games. Back
Wow.
in
Really?
2000.
You should include that in
I,
your.
I love shooting.
Definitely.
We need that.
Yes.
I agree.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It was just a quick ice-breaking questions, and we can now start with our webinar and about retention. So, okay, do you want to go, Rach?
Sure. So we prepared a couple of questions for each person, and I wanted to ask this question for Pau. So can you give us like your kind of definition for user retention, and what are the metrics in your eyes that drives user retention?
Thanks for the question, Rachel. That's a pretty good question. So retention, we look at bringing the players back to the game. That's what we're looking at. But we also differentiate quite a lot between retention and engagement because sometimes they come like combined. And retention for us is basically just bring them back. And engagement is how do we actually keep them playing, right? What are we going to offer them within the game that we engage them? So the moment that one of our users install or one of our apps, this person will enter what we call the user journey, right? And we have some phases. At the beginning, we call it the onboarding phase. And for this, in this phase, we will look at retention day one. That is, if they actually logged one day after they actually install the app, okay? And during this phase, we also look into if they actually accepted the push notifications consent. This might not look like a really important thing, but it's crucial for us because this is the tool that we'll be using throughout the whole retention strategy in order to reach out to these guys. So we look into those two metrics, and then we move into the engagement where we'll be looking at the stickiness, that is the difference between the monthly active users and the daily active users. And that's a metric that we will use at that moment. If we want to lift that metric, so to say, we will then look into maybe putting some like daily rewards to get the players coming back. And then if we look at retention, normally, at least in the strategy games, look at day 30 days. That is like the general metric. And that one is very much influenced by what we've seen by the push notifications that we've been sending them through the onboarding. It's very, very important because if, for instance, if they are iOS users, the moment that they say no to these push notifications, it's really hard to get them back because they will have to go to all these options in their phone and they will probably never do it. So it's one key element that we look into. From I was meaning more from an ad monetization perspective, trying to monetize them through impressions. But if you look through the user acquisition perspective, I will try to do both. Is that we look into day one retention, day until day 7, and that would gives us a feeling for are the campaigns targeting the right guys? Do we have all the tech in place? And after that, apart from using the log from 0 to 7, we look into the events that the player is actually completing in the game. That is, if they reach a certain level, and those will be the ones that we'll be using for the UA activities.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you for your question. I just want to remind all the audience that you can ask questions and leave it on the chat box, and we will answer. We will do a Q&A at the end. So second question, it's going to go for Andres. More from your experience when building a product, a game in this case, what are the main challenges you face in terms of retention, and how do you plan it in advance? What's your strategy ahead retention?
Right. Yeah, well, the thing with retention is no matter how much you try, there is no way to secure good retention as far as I know. You can tick all the right boxes and it still get it wrong. So it's definitely one of the hardest metrics and user behavior reactions to stimulate and dominate. Because retention is built into the LTV formula. If a game is showing early low retention, the most frequent case is it's going to go down from then onwards, and future efforts of spending in UA won't yield positive ROI results, most probably. The other thing is some games are faulty by design, meaning there is an inherent problem in the game loop or in the way gameplay was designed, and no matter how much you A/B test, tweak, and change, you will only see minor improvements that don't move the needle, and you might as well start all over from scratch. And that's why we design our development process around the highly likely possibility of having to kill our new games eventually. And we prefer to take that decision as soon as possible before we are over-invested in a game. I can say also that at Tiny Bytes, we address this problem in 2 ways. Firstly, experience, and secondly, statistics. By experience, I mean usually each new game learns from the previous one from a team know-how perspective. If your latest game got to be, for example, a top 300 grossing game, it's more likely that your next game will hit top 100 grossing if you've applied all the things you learned from your previous games. And by statistics, I mean first published games have 99% chances of failing. There's also a correlation between number of games published and chances of one of them being a top performer. And mobile game development is a highly iterative process. The more you try, the higher the chances of succeeding.
I see. Thank you. Great question, answer. And related to this, from your side, Pao, do you think retention is a good predictor for other KPIs?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually for user acquisition, we work with machine learning models that require a lot of signals that we have to send through the MMP and to the measuring partner. So it's completely based on those retention, let's say, predictor KPIs that will allow us to actually feed the algorithms to be competitive. In our particular case with the strategy games, our LTV models are normally based in cohorts of 30 days. So we are seeing issues that other genres, let's say other gaming genres that are based more on retention 7 days, and might be talking hyper casual, they are able to accumulate more signals, let's say at the beginning, and they are able to put pressure on us in terms of achieving through the IPMs that they are able to achieve. They are able to compete with us on the CPM level that we compete, the LTV partners like in-app purchase games like us. So we see how retention is a very important metric that affects the whole ecosystem, right? And it just puts pressure on us on all sides. And from the ad monetization side of things, obviously, retention will indicate how much revenue we can actually make. For instance, how many impressions can we show each user each day? And we will look into those, like what I was mentioning earlier about from the session time, or we'll look into the what I was meaning about the stickiness. And yeah, it's all like that. So obviously, we use those constantly, and yeah.
I imagine when you soft launch a game and you start seeing the first retention numbers, that can predict something to the future, to the success or not of the game.
Yeah, I mean, when we are in the soft launch, obviously retention is one of the most important metrics, and that's what actually the studios ask us for. No, so but we've maybe in the past we've tried to bring traffic that we could think it was gonna retain better, so to say. But we figure out that maybe it's better to bring real traffic that we're actually gonna be marketing afterwards to have a real picture of what's going on. So that's what we are trying, and we clearly see the soft launches, and we're constantly soft launching titles, as you can imagine. And obviously, there's different strategies behind. But I was meaning more on when we're actually commercial launch and we are globally launching games, no? With high budgets, and that's when we actually look at prediction at these predictors, but from a ROA perspective. I'm talking from a UA perspective solely.
Awesome, thank you.
Cool. So next question, I think, is for Andres, right? Okay. So Andres is as a lean studio, and maybe you touched upon this last time, but in the last question is, in a lean studio that wants to grow, is retention the main thing that you take care of, or what are the other aspects that you consider first?
Yeah, in part, yes, it is the main thing. No one can scale a game or a business if they can't keep a reasonable percentage of players coming back. Retention is the growth engine in gaming because it helps stack new users on top of existing and returning users. And you can acquire millions of users and have all the monetization hooks in place, but it's not going to matter if players are not coming back. However, there are also other questions we ask ourselves when we evaluate launching a game, like do we see ourselves maintaining this game in live ops for many years to come? Are we willing to spend a lot of time, effort, and money to keep the game alive in the long run? Will this game lend itself well for social and competitive features that will make the players come back to play with their friends? By this, I mean that early retention is important, but social is one of our most important pillars because it drives mid and long-term retention, which is equally as important. Besides retention, there are other metrics that we also look at, like session length, frequency of use, stickiness, as Pau said. Particularly, we like to see the FTE funnel, the first-time user experience funnel. And we like to see if, churn and see if players aren't being able to move from one stage of the game to another. And we also like to see the shape of the retention curve and see if there's a particular drop in a day in which we lose more players than the average benchmark. So we look at day 2 over day 1, day 15 over day 7, and so on. And we also conduct early CPI tests to see if there is an indicative cost for acquiring players for our new games if we were to launch the game later on. So these tests can start as soon as prototype stage or open beta.
For example, I got a question here. You have been in like a lot of run of investment, and is retention a metric that, I don't know, your investors or VCs will look at, or they ask for, I don't know, other metrics?
it's definitely there amongst the top questions that VCs and investors ask, because it's a very good predictor, as I was saying before, to see if you can scale the business. They, you know, when you're in a high growth early startup, and that's what the investors and VCs are looking for. You know, you need to see that, you know, you show that hockey stick curve, and without retention, as I was saying, you need to pile up, you know, existing users, keep them, and then add new users, and then make that curve go up, from a DAU perspective, and that's going to impact the growth in revenue, of course. So it's there. That's why it's one of the first questions that they ask us.
Amazing. Thank you, Andres. Another one for Pau. So in your game retention strategy, what role does session time play? I think you mentioned something before. What role does session time play?
Yeah, well, session time, it's pretty important, and I'll try to explain to give a
How can you
perspective.
talk a bit louder?
Okay, sorry. I'll try to give a perspective from the UA side of things. In gaming, we have something called the session depth. Okay, that is that when someone is playing a game, we believe that the first minutes of the gameplay, if we show an impression, this person will be more prone, will be more likely to convert. So those first impressions, the early impressions in the session, are worth more, have a higher CPM than the ones that are later down the session. This is a double blade thing, in my opinion, because the users that actually play for a long time, they are really the gamers, and they are probably paying. So those should be more valuable. But how it is right now, it is that the first impressions are more valuable. So when we are thinking in UA terms, we're trying to bid higher for those impressions. So for us, the session depth is quite important, the session time, because it's gonna ultimately indicate us what CPMs can we expect. Unfortunately, in the DSP world, which I'm more familiar with, the programmatic, the exchanges don't disclose the session depths. Not all of them, only very few of them, like some of them. So it's not a metric that we can actually use that much from a DSP programmatic perspective. But if you talk to the SDK networks, they use it all the time. And it's one of the most important metrics that they use in order to optimize. So I know it's very, very important, at least from the UA perspective. And it also shows the intransparency we have within the auction, that the DSPs will never get even sometimes the chance to buy those good impressions of the early funnel, because we are down in the auction, we are like below, right? We are in the second, third spot. It's just how until header bidding doesn't come in, this is going to be an issue, okay? And it's something that we actually look into, but we don't have much control over it. If we were looking from the other, if we flip the coin and we look at ad monetization, it's the same story. If we have a user, those users that the early impressions are worth more for us, we can make more money out of them. So we have two different strategies. We have strategies based on those users that watch a lot of impressions but have a very low CPM. And we have a different strategy on those users that watch not that many impressions. It would be like more focus on frequency and more focus on engagement, so to say. And there are a couple of things that you can do with dynamic caps and stuff. So yeah, it plays a huge role. It's just hard to optimize and hard to actually measure the value that it plays. But in my opinion, it's fundamental in understanding how the whole CPM and how the UA works. Yeah.
Thank you for your answer. Next question.
Yeah, this is a question I think for Andres, right?
Andres, yeah.
So Andres, can you give us examples of some successes and failures that you've had along the way? And I'm sure you've had a long way, so maybe you could share some with us that stand out.
Definitely many failures and little successes. Yeah, at Tiny Bytes we fail all the time, and I'm proud to say that. You know, and we like to think of ourselves as a lean startup company. Our first game, Battle of Toys, back in 2015, received millions of downloads and awards and featuring and from the app stores and appraisal and all of that, but it was a commercial failure. And it was disappointing because we spent 12 months of hard work on it. I was very personally involved. It was the early stage of the company, and we're investing a lot and trying to build a team back then. And it was a tough lesson to learn, but it helped us pivot our approach to product development actually. And ever since, we worked on over 50 playable prototypes, and we published 17 games. And all but one, Massive Warfare, which is, I would say, our most successful game to date, were killed. Everything else was killed. Unpublished. Just to give you an example, we have released 2 new minimal viable products, open betas in late December 2019, and we'll release 3 more in May now, this current month. So that's 5 games in 6 months, and we're a small studio still. So our MVPs take around 3 to 4 months to develop in average, and they're quite polished. What we do is we measure player behavior, early retention. We validate hypotheses that the team might have, and we try to obtain player feedback as soon as possible. We like to fail fast and learn from our failure as soon as possible before we overspend on a game, so we can bring those lessons onto our next games. We're proud of that, and the team celebrates every time we release the MVP, and regardless of the metrics. And once we've got the metrics, the team will spend 3 to 4 months to improve the metrics, and if it looks like it's not going anywhere for the team themselves will decide to either to kill the game, and obviously if the metrics are good, they will move to full production and hopefully global launch at some point. But if they kill the game, they will do a post-mortem, and they'll share it with the rest of the team, and so the rest of the team can learn, and they move on to the next project. But that's the team's decision, basically.
I like the approach.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Just for us, something that you can say what type of games are the vertical within games, your new releases.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. So it's always, I would say, action. So we like to, for us, action is the grandfather of subgenres. So we've done back in December, we've done an RPG style of adventure type of game. That's called Neon Soldier, and then we did a car battling and upgrading parts type of game with async multiplayer, and it's really an autoplay style of game, but with wow moments, and that's called Battle Cars. Both games are available in our Google Play developer page, and we will soon release 3 new games. Those 3 new games, one of them, the next one, I think probably this week, will be sharing with the world, is a shooter game we call Boom Hero, and I personally love it because it's a one thumb portrait shooter game that's so easy to play, but with a lot of depth. And there's nothing like this out there in the market. We like to do things for the core market, but that are very accessible. And that's and then there's a shelter survival type of game. Again, a portrait style of game that you can easily play as you go, but with a World War II kind of theme. And we also have a game it's a bit of a hybrid between a chance game and an RPG. elements with battling with cars, but in a random way, and you can throw dices to progress. So it's a bit crazy, I know, when you describe it like this. Yeah, I think it'll be a game that will appeal to broad audiences. That are into both chance games and RPG type of games.
Awesome.
Coming
Eager
up.
to see him, yeah, reaching the top charts. Um,
Thank
well,
you.
last but not least, a question for Pau. From your experience, could you and what your predictions? Can you give us an outlook for this year, for 2020?
Yeah.
Complicated year.
A tough year, right?
I'll
We're
try to be
all
positive.
working from home. Yeah.
I'll try to be
Yeah.
positive. I mean, COVID has not been bad for gaming, as you probably seen in all those charts. It's been fine, but we see that the party, so to say, is over, or that's what pretty much everyone is seeing. CPMs are up again and things. But I would say from this year, looking 2020, I'm very excited about some products that are coming out regarding what I was mentioning earlier about ad monetization and UA. I think those two are coming together. And we see the UA managers were always looking for more data to actually put in our models to optimize, right? That was like the obsession, data. And I think that now we're going to be able to get more data from the ad monetization side of things, at least the in-app purchase titles like us, the strategy and all those. And I think that could be like a game changer somehow, to see how the industry moves. And we see, for instance, AdFlyer is now releasing this product, and some mediation platforms are also picking up with this topic. And also Facebook is putting a little bit of pressure. So I see it like a very interesting year in that regard. Me in charge of ad monetization and doing UA is perfect for me, obviously. And that's why I like it. But on the other hand, I see also some dangers. You guys probably know next year, third-party cookies will be deprecated. This might come to mobile. There's a bit of fears that iOS 14 will remove IDFAs altogether. There are rumors of a new network coming up, very, very strong, trying to compete against the SDK networks we have right now. So I think there's a moment of change. And sometimes I always want to have this transparency into the auctions and into the whole ad tech. And I was hoping for header bidding this year to actually kick in and move things a little and make things a bit more democratic. But I don't know if that actually is going to happen, to be honest. We've been talking about that for years now. And I think maybe what happened before that actually the IDFAs disappear and we have to start from scratch. And that would be, I'm not being negative. In fact, I think it's something positive. And I think that could happen this year. And I'm looking forward. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see what's. Thank you very much for your outlook, Pau, and the questions. I think we are now done with the questions to you, and we want to start hearing and answering the audience. Sounds good? So some
yeah.
Q&A.
I saw some nice questions.
Yeah.
I saw some nice questions there.
I don't know. Okay, let's go over the first one.
This is time to tell everybody to add your questions if you would like to hear from
Rach, can
Pau
you
and
read
Andres.
can you read the questions, Rach?
I can. Okay. Should I, so let's see. Gon Varela is asking, can you share an example of a real campaign that's performing really well for you to boost retention, no matter the channel, push, paid, etc. So maybe each person can take their own, time to answer this one.
Whoever wants to take it can take it or comment.
Yeah, we've tried in the past. I've worked in different gaming teams. I'm not going to specify where, but we tried in the past to lift that curve of those day 7 retention. We lose so much percentage. We tried on Facebook and other different channels. It's tough, I'm going to say. It's not the easiest, and we've never really seen crazy results there. Okay, like at the end, you want to put more money in some new users, let's say. But I got to say that with push, is where I've seen the most success. And that's where in other gaming teams have been we were really successful with push notifications, and that's what I meant earlier. That's the number one. In fact, CRM channels right now they're working a lot into push because it's for free and it's already sending engaged users, and it's just perfect. So I would say push by far.
Excellent.
Amazing.
Right.
Andres, do you want
I
to
guess,
add?
yeah. I guess by push, they GON means push notifications that are sent via the game itself. Yes, to users. Is that right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely, I can speak. I mean, from a push notifications perspective, yeah, they're you know, they help. They kind of add they help re-engage the players, especially if there's something that, you know, a limited time event that is tied to it, or if there's, for example, the a feeling of uh, loss aversion. So the fear that you might lose something if you don't come back to your game to recover or rebuild or defend, say, for example. So those things really help you know, boost retention. I wouldn't say they're like game changers, but they kind of add, you know, a few extra points. And but the most important thing is that they have to be tied to a game design that is really meaningful for them to come back. You know, not just hey, come back, I miss you. You know, and we miss you at the game. You know, they're not going to come back just because of that.
I've seen
in terms
those
of
push.
yeah, yeah, we've all seen those. In terms of paid campaigns, I personally heard lots of stories of, you know, maybe influencer campaigns or specific creatives that had an extraordinary retention rate. We haven't seen those in our experience. Retention for us is something that the game has to have by itself. It's a, I would say, a game design kind of thing more than. It's hard on me still to understand how, you know, you can artificially change retention with a paid user acquisition campaign. I do have a special interest for studies where some specific user acquisition campaigns can have segmented paths in the game that are made customized for a type of segment of players that were targeted via a specific user acquisition campaign, and those users will have a different path in the game that will hopefully improve their retention. So that's something that is, I think it's quite new, and you know, it has a high level of complexity from a game design and analytics point of view, but it's something that we're interested in, and this might be the future, actually.
Cool. Okay, so that we've got a lot of nice questions
Yeah.
here. The next one is for both for Tiny Bytes and Good Games. Do you guys have some VTA windows for all your partners? Somebody is asking here, or how are you measuring the attribution correctly to give a credit to the correct partner? And I guess this is combined with a couple of questions. Lastly, are you used to share full attribution callbacks to your partners even if they are outside the agreed VTA window?
Mhm.
So that's very kind of
UH.
maybe marketing
Yeah,
oriented.
absolutely.
I'll be happy to post it.
Yeah, that very same VTA window for everyone, that's the fight, I guess. We've seen how Facebook started with that, and I think all the channels have picked up on that, and now everybody's in the same VTA window, I would say. Might differ if your partner is a lot of banner, because VTA normally varies if it's banner or video. And yeah, we measure that, and in fact, in DSP is one of the main metrics. We have to be extremely careful about it, because you can, like a lot of DSP partners out there, they can ask for a very long attribution windows, and we normally put like one day, 7 days, or we might even lower it to some hours. And yeah, if the install comes outside the attribution window, we'll not see it. It will go to Canvas. So the partner can claim whatever they want, or we just follow whatever we put in the MMP, and that's it. But yeah, this is a great question, and this is a very important topic, I would say, among at least the programmatic industry. It's one of the hot topics.
I think for all, yeah, programmatic and any kind of user acquisition, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Andres, you want to add to this, or I could move to the next question?
I wish I
You'll
had one
pass.
of our user acquisition managers here to rescue me on this one. So I
No
prefer to
worries.
pass.
Okay. So I have this next question. How does the UA and product team work together on retention? So that's a good one.
Yeah.
So Andres, you could take this, and then Pau, you add.
Sure. Yeah, that's the thing for us, especially. We always have this. We're a small team, and we decided on purpose not to grow too much. We could, but we rather keep it amongst a close group of people that sort of the decisions at Tiny Bytes are centralized in the teams. They're not centralized in me, and it's the contrary of a vertical sort of pyramid structure organization type. So, and the other thing that we foster a lot in people is that we don't have departments. We don't have what some companies call areas or departments because we want to avoid silos of any kind. So we even have a Scrum meeting where we have not only the game developers, we have user acquisition managers, and they share all this information, and they're very curious people. And the reason why is that, and we have also the analysts in there in the mix. We like them to understand the whole path from acquiring a user via a paid user acquisition or ASO or any source, to retaining that player and monetizing. And all our developers and artists are there very data driven as well. So they want to know the full thing. We've got artists that are involved in A/B tests for install rates, and they want to understand click-through rates. They want to understand which creative is driving more installs. They want to help with that. So they're very curious, and we like this kind of generalistic approach where everyone helps each other out and everyone is sharing information so they can help their teammate do a better job, basically, and achieve their results. So yeah.
Excellent. Pau, you want to add anything, or I have another question here.
Next one is fine. I think you did.
Okay, so I have another question. Assuming your games are global, how does the strategy change per market or geo? And if not, how do you create strategy to get the best performing results globally? And then there's another addition to this. Also, what are the best creative sizes and formats for UA and retargeting? So there are a lot of questions here. So you guys can break that down.
I can jump in. For UA, we normally use rewarded video. For retargeting, I would say banner is a better format. It's cheaper because of the CPMs. You already know the users. You just have to find them.
Yeah.
And what was the other question there was?
So it's about the global aspect. Assuming your games are global, how does your strategy change per market or geo?
Our games are global, and I mean, like any other gaming company, we rely a lot on Facebook and Google. So those you might not maybe do a very specific, at least for Facebook, a very specific strategy, maybe creatives and stuff like that, but not a different strategy, like a different kind of lookalike or something. But I would say depending on the geos will differ more on the partners. Maybe for some countries, Snap is a very good partner, whereas for other geos, Snap just doesn't work, or Twitter. So I would say that in that regard, you have to test partners that you always thought, oh, this never works. Maybe it works in certain geos. And I will look into testing different partners in different geos. But when it comes to Facebook, where I think we put a lot of budgets, I don't see a very big difference in strategies between different countries.
So, Pau, I got a question. Do you localize creatives in that case?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of
So
course. Yeah, I take that for granted that we're gonna localize the creative.
Okay, at least.
When we go to Asia, we normally take an agency from Asia because it's really hard for us to localize Koreans or Japanese creatives because it's a completely different world. So for some geos, you definitely have to go local, but many other geos you can try to, anyhow, our teams are very international. We have people from all continents, so we get the feeling anyhow.
Amazing.
We have time, right, for other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go one more. Yes.
Okay, great. So let's see. So somebody is asking here, what is the best approach to reduce or mitigate overlapping audiences? So I suppose that's
UA.
UA
question.
I don't know. I read the other day that there's not a single impression in this planet that is not being invaded by Facebook, Google, or Amazon. I think that when we are talking so much about the cannibalization of the campaigns, I think it's almost impossible not to do it. Even when you are saying, "Oh, I'm launching Unity ads and I'm launching Facebook," you are actually competing against each other because maybe Facebook is connected to Unity. So the supply chain is so complex and so hard for us to understand that, okay, sometimes it's obvious you shouldn't be competing in a certain segment, or these two are overlapping and it's very obvious, but most of the time you are going to be overlapping, or whether you like it or not. And even your own campaign might be overlapping because of how the auction is working and the supply is giving you the impressions. You never even know that. So I wouldn't really worry that much about it. It's a topic that we always talk about it. Oh, don't start a partner because I'm already running this. But I don't really see that we are so big that we are cannibalizing because you're running 25K on Unity and I'm running this on DSP Unity, but maybe not. That's at least my opinion. And yeah, in that regard, I think we first have to actually understand the supply chain to actually say that. And I think it's really hard to understand.
Okay. So maybe another quick question. I think this one would be good for Andres. So somebody is asking, hi from Argentina. Can you give me tips for retention of players within the game?
Wow. Well, this is this could be, I could give you go on and on. Yeah, there's top tips. Yeah, there's, well, first you have to first you would have to segment or separate, let's say, early retention, mid retention, and late retention. And there are different actions and game design hooks and features mostly that impact also, and the content and the amount of content. Obviously, you know, the further they go into the game, the more content you'll have to put in the content furnace. I would say, you know, there is a long list, but for us, rather than going for a long list, I would say, you know, don't just discard a game just on day one retention. Look at what happens after that. And social for us, you know, anything. So just to give you examples, you know, having guilds or alliances and alliance wars, and you know, chats, voice chat, that sort of stuff, that really helps with mid and long-term retention for people to, like, one of the things that we you know, we explored a lot is we talked with a lot of players directly, and they were players from similar games before we started working on Massive Warfare, and we asked them, you know, why are you coming back to this game? And they were saying, well, you know, I'm not too engaged with the game itself really, but I'm coming back because I made friends there, right? So if the type of game that you're building lends itself well for social, social will be a great reason for you know, for coming back to the game later on. And let's not underestimate, you know, mid and long-term rotation. You could have a game with you know, relatively low early retention, but if you do a great job with the elder users at keeping them engaged with, you know, specific events and social features and and lots of things to buy in the game, you could have a decent LTV there for then obtaining ROI. So I would say try to see all the different aspects. There's the list, could go on and on. There's so much to talk about it, but from push notifications to daily rewards to missions and achievements and stuff like that. But you will, I would say, rather than just ticking all the boxes, try to see what is best for the type of audience that you're trying to target, and for the type of the experience that the game is lending itself for. Basically, if you see that there's an opportunity for a social game, then go for it. Try to improve that in your game.
Good advice. Excellent. So yeah, great. I have now somebody's asking something that sounds very specific. What is the industry standards for day one retention in different categories? And specifically, I think they're trying to get the answer for, they want to know about third shooting and driving simulation games. So maybe, can you guys answer for that?
I can say, yeah, the benchmarks vary quite a lot from genre or subgenre to another. There's a lot in that, and I would say you can give a benchmark. For example, it could be, I would say probably, so racing was one of the subgenres. So I can remember what was the other one.
There was third-party shooting and driving simulation.
Shooting and driving. Probably, if you take the overall, the benchmark for the whole industry, it's going to be probably lower than, the typical 40% that everyone is looking for in day one, right? It's probably going to go close to 30, I guess, roughly. But that doesn't mean, and it could go, your game could be even lower than that. And, but that's why it's good to see the whole picture. What comes after that? What is your day two over day one? Are you losing too many players? Or are you doing a decent job that, okay, you take a hit on day one, but you do a good job on maintaining that retention all throughout the remaining days? So I'd say I wouldn't be obsessed with that. But then if you see particular examples of top grossing games in say, let's say, for example, racing, there are great games out there. Garena has a great game. Hutch Games has great games that are not the typical, racing game, as in, arcade, with manual skills and stuff. So I worked on a lot of those games. I worked on Need for Speed games for mobile and real racing for mobile. So the way that some other developers and publishers are approaching it is a completely different thing. It could be racing with cards, or it could be sort of a more esports take on it. So, and they could have, different retention rates, most probably than the typical benchmark. So it really varies within a subgenre.
Excellent.
Also,
Pao, you have anything to add to this?
not really.
Not really. Okay. Question. This is a question for Pao. What type of creatives are best at driving retention? Do you see that, some kind of generalization?
I would say the ones that are closer to the actual gameplay of the game, like when you have this, we launch a lot of rewarded videos. So I would say the videos that combine a little bit of gameplay, which sometimes are not the best performing ones. So we don't launch so many of those because it's hard, no? Because maybe you get good retention rates, but you don't lower the CPI as much as you want, and you get other creatives where you can scale a bit more, where you get less retention. So are not the ones we might be always using. But I would say if you want to retention, you have to convey the message of the game in the creative in a way that the person actually knows what to expect.
So maybe playables are also a good thumbs up for that.
Yeah, but unfortunately for strategy games like city building or all these games. Playables are not that good. I think playables are more for hyper casual. So for
Right.
us, we didn't test playables so much to tell you that, to be honest.
Okay.
Yes,
We have
can
still
go
time.
one more.
Yeah?
I guess.
One
Yeah,
more.
Yeah.
So I have here a question regarding the Apple Store optimization and Apple search ads. What are the main challenges and best tips? Do you have anything that you could say, Pau?
I'm not in charge of those.
Not in that.
No.
Okay.
I'm not.
Andres, do you have a way to?
Although it's super important. But...
True.
I can't say too much about that, but Apple Search Ads is one of the things that we're interested in, and especially the relationship between doing first tries with Apple Search Ads on specific keywords, and then building your ASO keyword optimization efforts on top of that. So use Apple Search Ads to get as much information and explore as much as you can, and then kind of build an ASO strategy for based on the information that you gathered. So, but I'm hearing lots of great things about Apple Search Ads and how you can combine it with other things. Some people are trying to sort of do it in a defensive way, so try to keep your competitors from sort of stealing your keywords. That's what I'm also hearing. So they're giving it different uses, but it's very interesting what is happening from Apple Search Ads these days. So something that we keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's good. It's good that you had like it's not only to acquire new, but also protect yourself. That's the combination that you need to look for. Okay, I guess we are one more quick question.
A quick question, and this I guess is because the time is coronavirus. So maybe let's ask a question about the coronavirus. So you guys obviously will be seeing the effects, are experiencing the effects. What do you say are going to be the effects of the coronavirus on the retention rates? Because yeah, it's like a whole another ball game. What do you say?
We've seen them increasing a little bit. In fact, I checked it, but we'll see what happens in the next months.
Exactly.
I don't think people are going to be playing that much, and we will see what happens. It's true that we engage users that before we wouldn't have engaged, no, and maybe some of those we can retain. But I would say that most likely things will go back to normal in the next months. At least I hope so. Although my term are vertical, but for everyone.
So we can go back to the office as well.
Whatever.
Okay, guys, I think we are almost in time. We got more questions. We will answer it via email now. We just want to say thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today and all the amazing questions. Thank you, Andres, Pau, to join this webinar. And just to remind, all the content has been recorded and we will be sent to you via email to all the register to the webinar. And well, see you on the next session that we will have.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.